Ladies and gentlemen, this is Eddie Marcus again. I want to say I am so glad that you have stopped on this post. Many of you know that I speak to you about a power that is much more powerful than any man could ever be or claim to be. And I'm here because of that power. And that power has me here because you are loved. I'm talking about God, and I know that many of you, for good reasons, do not believe in God. I'm not here to make you believe in God, but just to share with you about God. The truth of the matter is that God has been really, really good to you even to this date. You see, I have been selected amongst all men, and there are others, to bring this message of love to you about God. Why am I selected? It is because when I was a kid, I made a decision, a very miscalculated, stupid decision. I wanted to swim across a lake like the big boys when I was little. And I couldn't even swim. I could dog paddle. But I told myself I could swim. And I wanted to go and do a rehearse, practice on it when no big boys were around. I was going to swim across the lake. So when they did come, and they started swimming across, I could just join with them. And when I'm able to do it, surprise them. So I chose the moment when nobody, no inner tube or anything was there to come to my rescue if I needed it. I just said I could, and I began to do it. This was in It'll Mississippi, a little lake called Roebuck. So I did my little dog paddling so I can get out there in it. And I guess I started getting a little distance, and I got a little bit further, and then I tried to throw some strokes. And after I got a piece up out there, I looked up and down the lake. You know, you turn your head. And when I turned my head one direction, I saw a tree trunk sticking up out of the water. And on that tree trunk was a snake, a water moccasin. And I found myself in a lake with the water moccasin in his habitat. And here I am going to prove that I can swim, but I never thought about dealing with a snake. Scared me pink. And I screamed. And having done that, I got the snake's attention. The snake fell off the trunk and was headed my way. Scared me, ladies and gentlemen. You can imagine how frightened I was. So I began to try to go back, and panicking like anybody would panic. I found myself splashing water. Seemed like I wasn't going anywhere. And I looked back over there for the snake, and I couldn't even see it. Oh, that made me think the snake probably was under me. And so all of a sudden, something magical started happening. I found myself swimming so fast it was pathetic. It didn't take me long to get back to the bank. And as I climbed up out, as soon as I did, the snake came right up under me. Now, what the snake did was went over to the side, over where the water was very shallow, and curved up, my friends, and looked at me. I ran up that hill naked. I was getting away from that snake, and I didn't ever go back to that lake again. I learned, my friends, that day I threw my life away. God saw me throwing my life away and decided to protect me. So I was chased out of the water by a snake. And so what I surmised out of that was no longer was my life mine. And I'm saying this in conjunction with many other times that the same kind of situations happened where I threw my life away and God protected it and gave it back. And when I say God did it, I'm saying that no human being on the face of the earth could have done anything. Anything. Neither could I. But I'm still here. So my life is not my life for me. It is a life that God can use for you, for us all. So that's what I mean when I say I was selected. Now the message that I bring to you today is for anybody that wants to listen, but specifically for those 35 subscribers that I've only been able to interest in the past probably 8 years that I've been posting. And it's only also for those 5 or 6 or 7 individuals that will find some time to stop and listen to it. Maybe 2 or 3 might listen to it through its entirety. But that is not my concern. My concern is being obedient to do what I have been given to do. You know, you've heard it said that whom God chooses, he qualifies. And so God had something specific for you that you perhaps didn't know, and that is that America was on the path to destruction, on a path to hell, was and still is. Now God wanted you to know that because you didn't and still don't know that. So the way to qualify me did not come from the institutions that have already been established all of these years that America has been here. It is the way that these institutions provide their service to you and the power that they are led by, which brought us to the point of being in this position to be on our way to hell. Well, how did he qualify me? I was working as I got out of college with the Veterans Administration in Chicago. I was a benefits counselor. And I worked there for a few years, and I got exposed to some of the ugly things that happened in Chicago. But the most ugly thing was the suffering, the pain, the poverty that so many people in Chicago had to endure. God didn't appreciate that. God wanted to do something about it, and so I was called to do that. And one of the first things I had to do was give up the job with the Veterans Administration. I had to give up, you know, the aspirations that I'm sure each of you have. I have them. But when God called, I felt honored. So I gave up the job of being, you know, with the nice car and the 3-piece suit or 2-piece, whatever I desired, a little money in my pocket, the partying in the clubs and making moves. But I'm not trying to impress anybody that I became special or perfect or no, nothing like that. I just know that the pain that I felt watching this poverty caused me to say, I got to give this up. I got to do something about it. And I know that as long as my pockets were satisfied, as long as I was happy, I wasn't going to do too much. So I had to start putting myself in a position to feel the same pain that people who are suffering because of lack were doing. So I felt the pain. Well, I was married at the time, and God called me, didn't call my spouse, and she married the man who was reaching out for rainbows, not a man that was concerned about giving up his dream. So she decided to leave, and that happened. And I went into the military because it kind of caught me off guard. And I went in at a time I really didn't believe, and still don't believe in war. But I went in because the hostages has been taken in Iran, and I thought there might have been some battles. So I wanted to, here again, throw my life away. So I joined the military and requested that area in the Persian Gulf. So if anything actually happened, maybe I could get killed. Well, you know the outcome. There was no war. And I got a chance to travel with the Navy around many places. And I am grateful for that because I can see I never would have had that exposure had I not been in the military. But at the same time, Ronald Reagan, the president at that time, some of his policies did not work in the favor of poor people in America. And I started feeling the same pain for poor people all over America that I felt for in Chicago. And that being the case, I could not see myself taking orders from a commander-in-chief, from the president, who had no better visions than that. And so I ended up going through the court martials. This was just basically to see if I was real. I mean, you're going to be court-martialed, you can change your mind and do what you're told to do. So I didn't do what I was told to do and took the court-martial and found out that because I did so, it was some of the best times of my life spiritually. I mean, I felt above any level of understanding and peace that I'd ever felt otherwise. So this was all good. So when I was finally released from the military, I had a little job here and there. One was at the Mississippi Valley State University recruiting students, but that was just trying to get my foot settled and established again. And I eventually left there after a year. I was being led to continue on the mission that I had been given. So when I moved to Minnesota, God had given me this vision that America and his people were on the path to hell. And God loves us enough to want to take us off that path. So what he did, he told me that the support that I would get would be from the church. The church. I'm talking about God, I'm talking about love, I'm talking about things happening for you. So whom else would help but the church? So what he got me to do was to travel across the country, throughout the country. I traveled many states a few different times. And the message that I was carrying was God's love for humankind and how that could actually manifest itself by the people changing their conduct, by the people engaging themselves in the process of creating paradise on earth, as it were. And I went back and forth. I talked on street corners. I talked in parks where I got groups. I talked in churches and just made discussions in Sunday schools. I even had to challenge the system a few times. I did it all. That was just to be obedient, share with the people, get the response that people would give. And in fact, the Spirit had asked me, encouraged me to keep a diary of the events and call it American Christians on the Path to Hell. American Christians on the Path to Hell. Not just the public itself, but American Christians. Because in most instances, I went to these church organizations, shared with them my purpose and seeking their support, and then branching out to the public and the streets and places wherever I could find them. Well, having done this, I traveled all across the country, and having done this, I came back and I put my notes together, and actually, when I did it and read it, it indicated that the way the people responded was a reflection that they did not understand God at all. Well, he had given me this information, and the next move was to seek public office. Now, God is not a politician, but the American people are. So he asked me to run not as a Republican or a Democrat, but basically to champion the program that he had given me. The understanding that life could be so much better, not for just some, but for everyone. And so, to put it specifically, as I was engaged in that political front over time, I sought after the office of President of the United States at least 3 times. I sought after the governor of the state of Minnesota at least once. Sought after the office of the United States Senator from the state of Minnesota twice. And I sought after the office of mayor of 2 different cities at different times in the state of Minnesota. Now, each time I saw these particular offices, I was lifting up God the way God should be lifted up. I wanted the people to know how whatever problems that they experienced, the answer was in changing their way and doing it a different way, a way they perhaps were not familiar with. but I wanted to share it with them, and I wanted to be in a position so that I could have a voice, and when I say something, it could be heard all across the nation. But at each effort, I did not get enough support to walk out of the front door. So what God had done, He had given me an opportunity to spread the message of His love, then came back and put me in a position to run for office, that if people wanted to share in this blessing that God had for them, they would support it, and whatever happened would happen. Well, whatever happened did happen. Nobody was interested. So, this is basically what I find myself. I hope you understand. Now, the message I have been give to you today is this. I was lying in the bed the other night, and I was tossing and turning. I know I'd be sharing messages with you sometimes every day, sometimes once or twice a day. But this time I was asking God, what should I speak to you about? What should I share with you? And He put on my mind, talk to them about evil. Talk to them about evil. I mean, it was so intense I had to get up and start making notes from my mind so that I could share this with you today. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm so glad that there are those of you who are still here. And I'm not trying to change you. I'm not trying to convert you. I'm not trying to do any of those things except what I've always been doing all the time. And when I was out there running for office, I got one indication. It came from a news reporter. You know, some newspapers back in that day, the internet wasn't that available to everybody. So I would send out information to the television stations. I would send out information to radio stations and the newspapers. And some of them would actually pay attention and give some information to the public, their readership, about third-party candidates. And I remember that one responded to my information and said that the problem with Eddie Marcus' campaign is that he wanted more for the people than they wanted for themselves. It wasn't I who wanted more for the people. It was God who wanted more for the people than they wanted for themselves, meaning that they were rejecting it. And so here I find myself back preparing to talk to you about evil and narcissism. So bear with me, if you will. The question might be, what is it that evil wants? Evil wants your soul. Now, that part of it is referring to spirit. But what does evil really want? Evil wants to be king. In order to be king, see if I can take this down so I can use it a little bit better. It needs a kingdom. Now, when you think of kingdoms, you might think about places like Russia. You might think about places like the U.S. or North Korea or China. Or, to be more specific, the kingdom would be the world. But having a kingdom is not enough. You need servants. And who would the servants be? It would be you, the people, all of us. Now, in this presentation, just so I can make it easier to understand, I'm not going back in the day. I'm speaking of today. Now, we have a gentleman that represents evil. His name is Donald Trump. And evil has several identifying signs. America was warned about this evil person, but he was accepted anyway. So the warners ended up joining because he brought out the evil within themselves, trapping people into negativity and feeding their egos emotionally and physically with abuse. Now, one of the first signs of evil and evil people is that they mislead you. They make themselves look like they are right, and you are the ones that are wrong. The second sign of evil is victimhood. Everything wrong is your fault. They had nothing to do with how things ended up or how they turned out. They will blame anyone but never themselves. They will never take responsibility. That might sound like somebody you know. They want to come out positive, for they live in their own lies within their minds. Now, this is their way of wanting to stay in control. Now, the third sign of evil and evil people, they are not sorry. They may make insincere apologies, but they do not mean them. They are not sorry for their actions, for evil people have negative intentions behind. They have evil intentions behind their actions. They don't care how their actions affect you. They have delivered some kind of pain, and you are unhappy, but they are not sorry for it. Now, the fourth sign is they have severe control issues. They love controlling people around them and everything in their lives. They pay attention to fine details. They want to control everything around them, including you. They want you to do everything they say exactly how they ask or tell you. And if you don't follow their orders, they'll make you feel bad until you conform. Here again, that might bring some current events to your mind that gives evidence of what I'm saying. Now, the fifth sign is they'll always denying things. Everything is messed up because of you. You have only yourself to blame for all the problems. They will manipulate the information in their favor. They may go to the extent of lying because someone else, in order to shift the blame to you or someone you know. They will never take full ownership. They are constantly denying the facts. Okay, the sixth sign is they steal your time. When evil people are around other people, they always have an evil intent. They steal your time because they don't want to see you succeed. They may not like you, giving them a selfish, egotistical desire. They want to steal your time for their own selfish gains. Number 7. 7 of the 7 reasons and signs of evil and those that are being led by evil. In other words, evil people. Other people warn you about them. When we spend a lot of time with such a person, we tend to develop a cognitive bias where we don't see their flaws. But later, one day, we're able to spot them in retrospect and see fatal acts you had not paid attention to because you are trapped in the bubble. But other people can see straight through the BS coming from a different vantage point. So, if some people are warning you about someone, take it as a sign. Take it as a warning. So, if any of these signs match up toward someone in your life today or right now, you better question if you are holding on for the wrong reasons. But always be brave. Brave enough to let go of these toxic people in your life or government. That's the 7th reason. But ladies and gentlemen, this is why Trump only surrounds himself with people he can use, like the Attorney General, Barr. His cat, the president's cabinet, his attorneys, his advisors, his appointees, his justices, his judges, his secretary of state, his chief of staff, his military people, his military advisors, the men in jail right now for listening to him, and those under indictment, his press. These are his. The United States Senate. See, he only cares about people that can control him with what he sees in himself. With these powers over others, with their money and their inhumanity as dictators. Now, I'm sure every last one of you, except maybe Trump supporters, agreed with everything I said. And this is why I was so glad that God had given me this direction, because having done some research, I didn't just want to just come out and tell you what I already knew, like I do most of the time. I wanted to be able to refer to something that I'm sure you could agree with as well. But in order for you to understand the reality of evilness, I was also led to give you a little bit of information about narcissism. And I want to share that with you in conjunction with what you've already heard. The narcissists, they want the world to be evil. The world to be the worst place. They want darkness to reign. Their toxic tentacles affect any and everyone they touch. They want you to suffer under the weight of their tentacles and to succumb to their evil. That kind of sounds like somebody. Victims become narcissists themselves when they have had enough time to be influenced. Like in families, maybe their victims get away and becomes a narcissist. That is basically all they have been taught. The narcissist destroyed my life, so I might as well, so that it won't happen to me again. Or perhaps the golden children that are grown to be narcissists, just like them. The narcissist's purpose really trains you to have a narcissist mindset, to set you out for failure. They just want you to fail, and one way it happens is for you to become a narcissist, to be just as miserable as them, and to abuse others as a way of being happy. If you are a narcissist, you will abuse others and make the world a darker place. That is the goal of the narcissist. That is what they want. Happiness makes them miserable. Misery makes them happy. Especially if they know they caused it. They are bringers of chaos and destruction. They feed off it, and they feed off misery. The narcissist wants the worst for you. They want you to do the worst to others. That's the happening, the bullet thing. If you are bad, then the narcissist will say you are bad. Except now they have proof, unlike before when they just made up lies. Embrace the darkness. Let it engulf you. Be like the narcissist. That's what they want. Be addicted. Supply like the junkie parent that gives their children heroin to get them to sleep. They teach you to be addicted, an addicted narcissist. They want you to supply the ego, to be ego food, the toxic mentality, and even worse, not just toxic, but to be bad like the narcissist. They are so proud of their influence, they have manipulated you into doing this. Maybe you didn't even realize it. You've just been brainwashed to be like this. You might not even know that you are toxic. You are doing bad things. The narcissist already thinks you are part of them. You know, they don't really see anybody good. You are not your own individual person. And if you do exactly what they want, it can be without you even knowing it. By playing into it, you would be like a junkie, never happy, only happy when you have screwed over others. But does it really stick? You have seen how bad the abuse from the narcissist really is, so you don't want to be like that. But you have this toxic mentality that is programmed, or that is programmed into you. If you unravel, would you be left with nothing? When you have been brainwashed, when it's all you know, it can be a new beginning, the raveling, free of abuse for you and free of abuse for others. The narcissist and their little cult can't be left behind in the dust. You cannot stop the narcissist. You would be just playing into their hands, where they can use their brainwashing tactics and even trick you into being bad. Instead, you can get away from them, and then you can be free to do good, away from their sabotage. Narcissists don't want good, they only want bad. Well, they do want a little good just to claim responsibility for it and ignore all the evil, and to keep their slaves around with little drippings of good to keep you as their slaves if they can. The narcissists abuse you until you reach your breaking point, and then they feed on the meltdown. The narcissist says there is a solution, but there never is. It is their design. They just want to keep you around as their food source. They don't care about the bad things that happen to you, like going to prison for covering them. They don't care what becomes of you. They just want the worst. They want to destroy you. They can't convert you into being their slave. Or they want to destroy you if they can't convert you in being their slaves. Then they convert you to be bad, which is also, in a way, their slave. You are pushing forward the agenda of the narcissist unless you wake up, see what is going on. So you don't have to play into the hands of the narcissist. You don't have to be a force for evil. Be a force for good. That is what God would desire. You see, these narcissists and their slaves are intertwined into the fabric of America and world societies, world systems, and governments. They are against peace. They are against freedom for all as well as prosperity and joy for all. They are against the dreams of the people being fulfilled. They want division, crime, and violence. They want terror and war. They will lie, cheat, steal, and kill to achieve it. They create hatred and racism and bigotry and a false church supporting the same agendas to get it. A people that do not represent the opposite have succumbed to this form of slavery. You see, ladies and gentlemen, God still has a message for you. The Bible is dead men talking through the mouths of the lost. Let me say that to you again, because you've heard it said the Bible is the Word of God, and everything in it is absolutely true, and nothing should be changed. God wants you to know this, ladies and gentlemen. The Bible has its day, but it is dead men talking through the mouths of the lost. When I say the lost, I'm talking about people who don't know what they're talking about. Dr. Martin Luther King's dream was for yesterday. You don't find too many people reading Dr. King's dreams trying to pick up some points about how to go forward in the future. You see, this is now, and a new message from God through the mouths of the living is required. Ones that are alive must stand up. They must speak out, and they must walk straight to restore the good designed from the beginning. What I have said to you, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got it. In summary, I've indicated to you that God is alive and that God truly, truly, truly loves you. You are God's children. God is not like some parents. God is the lover of all. All that you have done in your ignorance, God still loves you. I stand before you today to say to you that every dream, every aspiration that you have, God knows it. And God wants it to happen for you. And God has done his part. Or should I say, God has done the part of God to cause it to happen. Even my standing here. What is missing is you. For you to accept it. For you to receive the Spirit. For you to become a living manifestation of the love of God in yourself. So that you can be the same to one another. And that which is essentially necessary to create heaven right here on this earth today is in your hand. But when God sent me to run for office, having brought me through the education process, and you turn your back not on me, but on the message of God and God's love. And today, we have sunk so low that we got an evil narcissist in the White House. So narcissistic that the Congress can't even restrain him. So out there that you the people don't know what to do. You're just sitting back waiting. So out of the clutch that he was threatening to start a war just last night. And did he ask you? He was sending your children, your parents, out to kill or be killed, to carry forward his evil, narcissistic ideals. And the church, what does it say? You tell me. What is the government? What does this say? They act like they had no hands in it. They act like they are totally committed, that they've been totally brainwashed. But I stand before you today, ladies and gentlemen, to say, whatever happens is in your hands. The choice is yours. You can create paradise right here on this earth, or you can be destroyed right here on this earth by your ignorance. So I'm not fussing. I don't want to scream at you anymore. I know when I scream, you are big boys and girls. You're lawyers and doctors and presidents of universities, and I mean, you got big important jobs and you make all kinds of money. So for me, who just a black man with no money, I mean, how dare I scream at you? But I only screamed because I know exactly what I'm talking about. And God really do loves you. And like little children, you seem to be so uninterested. Till it cranked me up sometimes and I felt like screaming, and I did. But I hope I can cut this screaming out. Because the truth is the truth. You either accept it or you reject it. Accept the truth and you'll be surprised at what will happen. Reject the truth and you will be sorry at what happened. So I want to thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me this your time. I hope if you need some additional information, you might refer back to the thousands of videos that I have posted over these 8 years, where I'm saying basically the same things that I've said to you today in different ways, addressing the different realities of life that you may be confronted with every day, in hopes that maybe somewhere, somehow, I might reach some of you. Why? Because I would love, I'm not concerned about dying and going to heaven. I would love to live in heaven right here on this earth. And since I'm not sure whether that'll happen, I just do the best I can. And maybe, just maybe, it will be good for our children. Maybe it will help serve in a wonderful way our grandchildren. Maybe there won't be lying and cheating and stealing and killing and all of these things maybe we will start treating each other as we want God to treat us. Why? Because that's what we want. And how? Because we become God in our lives, and what we do for others will be seen as the acts of God. Until next time, I want to thank you so very much. This is Eddie Marcus saying goodbye for now.